Hey, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to talk about something really powerful, language. Specifically, we're diving into a story about the people who've learned to use it as a weapon.
All right, let's just jump right in with a core idea here. This isn't just some boring rule from your high school grammar class, okay? This is a strategic tool. It's how you build sentences that are, technically true, but are completely empty emotionally and morally. It's the perfect way to hide who's really responsible.
Okay, so here's what that looks like in the real world. On the left, you've got this statement that just floats there. It's totally detached from anyone or anything. Mistakes were made. Made by who? No idea. It doesn't say. But then on the right, you get the brutal, simple truth. And that right there, that's the battleground they're talking about today.
So you gotta wonder, who comes up with these sentences? Who are these people? Well, let's meet our main character. A guy whose entire job is basically to make reality, disappear.
This is Elias Thorne. He's a senior architect at this place called the Consensus Bureau. And look, he doesn't just write press releases. No. He engineers your perception. Think about that. He's the guy who takes all the sharp, jagged edges of reality and just sands them down until they're smooth, harmless, and pretty much unrecognizable.
So, his latest project? It's a doozy. A huge corporation released a new dietary supplement, but it has this, let's call it a tiny side effect: total organ failure. And when your customer base is 10 million people, that little side effect adds up to 40,000 deaths. But, in his world, 40,000 corpses, that's really, really bad for stock prices. So his job is to pull off a kind of magic trick, a bit of alchemy. He has to take that heavy, undeniable reality on the left and transform it into the sterile, scientific, and, let's be honest, completely meaningless language you see on the right. And get this, Elias's boss describes their work just perfectly. He sees the truth as a hammer, and their job, it isn't to lie, not exactly. It's to wrap that hammer in so much velvet that when it hits you, it feels like a gentle caress, maybe even like a gift.
And you know what's wild? This isn't just made up for a story. It's actually based on a very real concept in linguistics. The whole idea is that if your language doesn't have a word for something, it's like way harder for you to even see it. But the story here takes it a step further and asks a pretty dangerous question. If you change the word for something, do you change whether it's right or wrong?
This right here, this is a perfect illustration of how linguistic engineering works. See, our brains are kind of lazy. They love shortcuts. So if you frame a policy using the word burden, you actually trigger pain centers in the brain. But if you take the exact same policy and call it an investment, you trigger reward centers. The policy hasn't changed one bit, but how you feel about it, totally different.
But man, this kind of work, it takes a serious psychological toll. There's this moment of raw honesty where Elias admits to his wife that the software he uses at his job, it's now running inside his own head. It's constantly reframing his own reality, basically rewriting his soul.
Okay, so all of this is building towards the ultimate test. The story calls it the ultimate frame job. Elias gets a contract to frame the end of democracy itself. And not as some tragedy, but as a desirable, high-end product. So the government is planning to impose what's basically martial law. And Elias's team? They get the job of turning the brutal, hard facts you see over there in the right column into the comforting, almost utopian phrases on the left. And this is where it gets really chilling. Here's the directive from his boss. The goal isn't just to get people to comply. It's not even just about getting them to accept the chains. The real goal is to make them thank you for their own subjugation. This is the moment Elias has his big breakthrough. He realizes, I can't fight this frame from the outside, it's impossible. So he decides he's going to hack it from the inside. He's not going to write a speech that denies the horror. Oh no, he's going to write one that takes its internal logic and cranks it up to its most extreme and absolutely terrifying conclusion.
And this all leads us to the climax, a live broadcast, beamed out to the entire world with the Prime Minister reading the exact script that Elias secretly loaded into the teleprompter. So the Prime Minister starts speaking. He frames the loss of freedom not as some kind of punishment, but as a luxury service. I mean, who doesn't want less uncertainty in their life, right? It sounds good. It sounds reassuring. Then he starts talking about food shortages. He reframed starvation as this spiritual, almost scientific journey. The words he uses sound so positive, purity, clarity. But that underlying meaning,
the cold, hard reality of hunger. It starts to seep through the cracks of the language. And then, this is the breaking point. He uses the phrase organic buffer layer. Now, technically, that's just abstract corporate jargon, but the human brain, it can't help it. It instantly translates that into its real gut punch meaning, meat shield. And in that moment, the whole frame just shatters.
The speech ends with this one last chilling command. All the pretense is just gone. It reveals what the system really wants. And the result isn't applause. It's just a deep, horrified silence. The illusion is completely broken.
So Elias managed to escape, but he left something behind for all of us, a guide. So for our final section, let's take a look at his Manual for Self-Defense.
What he did was he distilled all of his dark knowledge into 5 pretty simple rules. And these are rules to help anyone, to help you, spot and dismantle this kind of manipulation in your own life, to see the architecture of the frames that are being built around us every single day.
Rule number 1 is maybe the simplest, but it's also the most powerful. Just remember that the passive voice is where blame goes to hide. By asking one simple question, by whom, you force the person responsible out of the shadows and right back into the sentence where they belong.
The story wraps up with this little virus that Elias left in the system. It pops up as an apology, but it's really a final warning, and it's being broadcast by the very people he was fighting against. It's this haunting message that says, hey, the manipulation is going to continue, but now, at least, you've been shown how it works.
And that really just leaves us with one last crucial question. Now that you know how the architecture of the frame is designed, how it's built, can you start to see the walls being constructed all around you?
Please like and subscribe.